Okay, good evening and welcome to today's class, everyone. Hope you can all hear me. Hello, can you all hear me? Chizoba, James, and Francis. Can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right.
We
Yes, we
can hear
can hear
you.
you.
Okay, so
We
we
can-
are we are we are going to start today's class. So it seems due to poor network, we have low turnout. But yes, we are going to continue our class for today. So in our today's class, we're going to learn how to make use of our database MySQL, how to write our query, our first query in today's class. That's what we are going to learn. I hope you all went through the material I shared earlier. So did you go through the material I shared? Franz, Esther, James, and Chizoba.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly share my screen. All right. So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so in our SQL class, we are going to learn how to create a database. After that, the next thing we are going to learn is how to use the database, how to create a table, how to rename the table, how to add a new column to the table, how to modify the column, how to rename the column, and also how to drop the column. So that is the first thing we are going to learn in our today's class. So these are the 8 things we are going to learn in our SQL class. So I'll bring out my SQL workbench. So this is my SQL workbench, like what we did in our previous class. So this is my SQL workbench. We have downloaded it. So we click on this local instance, you click on it. So SQL is going to prompt you to enter your password. The next thing you have to enter your password. So once you've entered your password, this is what you're going to have. So this is how your SQL is going to look like once you've entered your password. So the first thing we are going to do, we are going to create a database. So before you do anything in MySQL, you have to first of all create a database, right? You need to give your database a name before you can do anything in MySQL. So they are going to give our database a name by using the create statement to give it a name, create. We are going to use the create statement to do that. So we type create. So you do a tab key. So one thing with SQL is that SQL is as an intelligence, meaning that if you are trying to type a word, SQL is going to suggest those words for you, right? So SQL is going to suggest those words for you. So when we're trying to type create to create our database, SQL suggested some keyword for us, which is create. So since we want to create a database, we're going to quickly hit on our tab key to say create. The next thing we are going to do, what do you want to create first? What do you want to create? We want to create a database. So we hit our space key, we type database, we hit on the tab key. So now we are going to give our database a name. So you can give your database a name, either John, any name of your choice. You can give it a name. So I'll give my database this name. So once you are done with it, so now once you have done writing your syntax, the next thing you are going to do, you are going to end it with a column. You're going to end it with a semicolon, telling SQL that, okay, I'm done writing my syntax. That is the end of it, right? So if you are done writing your syntax, you put a semicolon to tell SQL that that is the end, right? I'm not going to add any other thing again. That is the end of my syntax, right? So after you've done that, you click on this icon that look like a thunder, right? So click on it to execute. So once you have done, you can see here that create database affected. So you can see this red icon here, sorry, this green icon to show you that your database has been created successfully. So what that is the meaning of this icon we have down here. So that is the meaning of it. So now for you to see it in your schemas, for you to see it where is what we call schemas, for you to see this database we just created, you need to refresh it. So click on this recycle icon to refresh it. You can have it here, Tija is the name of our database. So click on this drop down to have our database tables, views, and so on and so forth. So since we have not, so we just created our database, so we have not made use the database. So the next thing we are going to do in our line 2 is going to use, we are going to tell MySQL that, okay, I've finished creating this database. I want to make use of this particular database. This stage I just created, I want to make use of it to carry out my analysis because database contains so many database. In this database, you can have so many type of database. You can have like up to 200 database in MySQL, right? So you must tell the database the particular type of database you want to use, the particular type you want to use. You're going to tell SQL that MySQL that you want to use this Tija database. This one we just finished creating. You're going to say use Tija. So you're going to end it with a semicolon. So we are going to highlight it and hit this on this execute. So we have that here, execute successfully, Tija. So the next thing you are going to do, you are going to insert what we call rules. So now the next thing we are going to do now, we are going to create a table. We are going to create a table in our database. So we are going to create a table. In that table, you are going to input what we call field. You are going to input what we call field. After creating the table, you are going to input what we call field. Field is the same thing like saying column, right? So field refers to column. So in MySQL, you don't call it column, you call it field in MySQL. So you call it field. So first of all, before we start creating our field, let's first of all create our table. So let's create our table using the create statement we did earlier. So we type create. We type create. So what do we want to create now? We want to create a table. So we type table. Hit on the first one. So what the name of the table do you want to create? So the name of our table is going to be employees table. So we give it employees. So we open our bracket. So I'll come to question. So let's finish creating this table first. So we create we open our bracket. So now the next we are going to start creating inputting. We are going to start inputting our field. The same thing like columns. You want to give each field a name, right? So you call it each column, but the terminology in MySQL is you call it field. So let's give each field a name. So just like the employee register you have in your company. So the first field is going to be employees ID. employee ID. So the next thing you are going to do, you want to define the data type that can enter into this column you are trying to create. Which data type can we use? So you know that when it comes to ID, ID could be text, it could be numerical. So now we are going to use integer. Integer in MySQL means numbers. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 9020, it could be 2024. So we are going to use integer data type. You can abbreviate with the int, integer. So that's why you're going to define that particular column. So if you input any data into that column that is not a number, like not an whole number, MySQL is going to reject it. So we have defined that column as an integer. So the next column we are going to do to get it right is going to be the first name. It's going to be the first name. So let's define the column of the first name. So we are going to define the column using text, right? We're going to use text like someone's name, Matthew, John, David, and so on. So now the data type we're going to use for this particular column is going to be varchar. So varchar means text. So varchar stands for text. Varchar. We are going to give it how many characters do you want first name to carry? How many characters do you want the first name to contain? How many characters? So you can give it a character from 1 to 500. So let's keep it at 100. I can keep it as 50. So I'm not sure if someone's first name is longer than 50 characters. So you move to the next. So you move to the next field. You move to the next, which is going to be the employee last name. To the same data type varchar. So varchar is the number of characters 50. So you move to the next one. So which department is this particular employee? So give the field department. Data type varchar. Varchar data type. How many characters? Let's keep it at 50. All right, so let's put in their price. Let's say their salary. So let's put in salary here. So salary, which data type are you going to use in salary? You're going to use the decimal here. So we want 2 decimal point, 5 precision, 2 decimal. So the next thing we are going to do, the last one is resumption date. When did this particular staff resume? You put resumption date. So which data type are you going to use? You're going to use the date data type. We're going to use the date data type here. So always put comma at the end of it. We're going to use the date data type. The date data type. So you move to the next line and close it and end it with the column. So we've done creating our field. So the next we are going to highlight it and execute. So we have highlighted it. So let's highlight it now and execute. So click on it to execute. So we have it here, executed successful. That's why you can see this green tick here. You can see it here. So now the next thing we are going to do for us to see this table we just created, we are going to use what we call select. The select statement is for us to call out the name of the table we just created in our database, right? We're going to use the select statement to do that. You use select. Select what? We want to select everything from the database. It says select star from where? From our database, sorry, from our table, employees, from employees. So we end it with our semicolon, we highlight it, and we execute. So you can see it here. You can see the column we created, the field. You can call it column in Excel, but in MySQL you call it field. You can see the field we created here: employee ID, first name, last name, department, salary, resumption date. So you click on the table. So let's refresh our schema. Refresh your schema. So you click on this drop down. Look at the name of our table here. So you click on it. You can see here in the under the information, you can see each table, what data type do we define each table to contain, each field to contain. The employee ID is a numerical data type, which is integer. The first name is a text data type. We are using varchar. We are limiting it to only 5 characters. Same with last name and department. So resumption salary is decimal, 5 precision 2. What it means is that we don't want it to be not more than 2 decimal and not more than, let's say, 100,000 naira or $100,000. So no staff is going to earn above that, right? So that's what this 5 precision 2 means. So the next field we have is resumption date. The data type there is date. We are defining it as date. In our next class, we are going to try and see if we input any data. Let's assume the first name, if we input numbers in the first name, if MySQL is going to accept that. So I'm going to pause here for questions. Any question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
and if I'll come to you.
Okay. Should I continue?
Yes, continue.
Okay. I put in a SQL, if you want to write a, let's say, a command or a statement, that you're to use slash asterisk. Then you also, like, if you want to do use that command, use the database name, you have to put slash asterisk, then end it with uh asterisk slash too. But I didn't see you doing that. Does it mean that it just work, you can work like that?
Okay. Like I said earlier, yesterday, that's a different database syntax I'm talking about. That's a different database syntax.
Okay, is server SQL server.
Okay, yeah, that one works for SQL Server, but this one works for
Okay.
MySQL. So each
Oh,
database have their own syntax.
okay. Okay.
Each database have their own syntax. So what works in
Okay.
MySQL might not work in my SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, and Postgres.
Okay. Now, again, when we were creating the table, like the place that you wrote salary decimal,
Mm.
the 5, I understood that the second number is a decimal. The first number is what? Is it like the salary of the person, what the person is earning?
Yes, the salary of the person is going to end.
Okay. Okay. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yes. So that what that means is that the person cannot earn above, let's say, 50,000 or thereabout. The person cannot above five figures.
Okay, five figures. That's
Yes,
what the five means.
yes. That what the five means.
Okay, okay. If it's 10, you can put 10.
Yes, if the person is sending more than 10 figures, you can put 10. If he's sending like 20 figures,
Oh,
you can put 20. Yes.
okay, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll come to that. And if you're
Okay, good evening, sir.
good
The
evening.
question I wanted asking, I noticed that you skipped while arranging, trying to send a command so as to arrange our table. I think you skipped. Is it number three? You know, you picked the first one, the second one. I think you skipped. Then you went down to number four. So I
Okay.
don't know. Is there a reason for that?
I'm
Then
sure.
that's one.
Okay, let me check that again. All right. Okay, yeah, right.
Yes.
Okay, there's no reason for that. There's no reason for that. You can skip it to the last line. There's no reason for that. We're just trying to
Okay.
make our
Then
work look neat.
okay. That's one. Then secondly, um the previous person that asked the question, I also want to. I think in carrying out the command like the star and the slash. I think as in, can we mix it up based on what she said? Because
No,
sometimes they will tell us that you're supposed to, if you are to use star and slash as a command, then you stick to it. Then if you are using what's it called? Is it I've forgotten the other one. You are also expected to stick to it. You don't mix the two together.
okay. I'm thinking that's another database entirely, so I can't really answer that. But if it's MySQL, so you have to use like this syntax I wrote down here. So this is what we call syntax.
Yeah.
This all these things are what is
Yes.
what we
Yes.
call syntax. But what we are doing is what we call query. We are trying to query the database. We are trying to get information from the database. But this thing all right is what we call syntax. Not like using your formula.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So any other question?
Hello,
Giovanni?
yes. Yes. Another thing, I don't know. Does it mean that my SQL doesn't have a constraint? There's what we call constraints when writing a creating a database. I know that in SQL Server there's constraints you use in creating a database, but I didn't see you using it on this my SQL.
Yeah, there's constraint on that, but I decided to make it very simple so you can all understand.
Okay. So, but it doesn't mean that this particular way that you did it is the, as in maybe later in future we want to create our own database. We will avoid constraint, or we are not going to meet it in any way or manner.
No, yeah, as you progress, you might come across constraints in your database. But creating database is the basic and the simplest way to create a database and also create a table.
Yeah. The constraint on so that we won't learn it to once you forget
I didn't get it.
to meet it. I say I think it would be good to let us know about the constraint on so that anytime we get to it, we know how to cross it.
Okay, all right. So I will do that in our next class because I didn't include that in my table of content for this class.
Okay.
So we are going to move to the next. So we are going to move to the next what we have on our table of content. So we've done the first one, which is create a database. We've done the second one, which is use the database. We've done the third one, which is create a table. So the fourth one we are going to do, we are going to rename the table. So let's quickly rename our table. So let's assume there was a mistake in our table. We're not to give it a name like employee, we to give it another name. So we are going to rename our table using the rename. Using the rename syntax. You say rename. So what do we want to rename? We want to rename our table. Rename table. What's the name of our table? Employees. Employees, rename it to what? So let's try renaming it to staff. So we end it with our semicolon. So you highlight it. So we click on execute to do that. So if you check here, rename table successfully. So we are going to refresh our schema to check that this employee is going to automatically change to staff. So you refresh it. So we have here staff. So if we change the name of our table to staff, so let's highlight it and execute. So we have it here. So we have finally renamed our table. So let's rename it back to employees. Execute. Refresh our schema. So we have it there, employees. So we move to the next item. What is the next item we have? So the next item is we are to add a new column to the table. So let's assume we to add, let's say, email address. So when trying to create the table, we omitted email address. So we have to add email column where staff can enter their email address. We are going to quickly do that. So I'm going to use the alter function to do that, the alter statement to do that. So we want to alter this table we just created, the employees table we created. We want to alter it and include a new column. So use alter table. So what's the name of our table? Employees is the name of our table. Employees is the name of our table. You're going to say add. So you're going to say add column. So what's the name of our column? What column do you want to add? You want to add an email column. So add email. Email column. So what data type are we going to define this email column? You know, email column. So what data type are we going to define this email column? So we are going to define with the virtual data type, with the text data type.
Okay.
So you can give it the character limit should be, let's say, 100. And then we now end it. We now close. We now end our syntax by inputting the semicolon. we highlight everything and we execute. So we have it executed successfully. So let's quickly do that. So we can see that this staff is still here. So if I mistakenly highlight it, then execute, SQL is going to say that it doesn't recognize this as a table. So we can see table teacher staff doesn't exist. If you check, it doesn't exist. This table doesn't exist. So we are now to rename it back to employees. To employees. We now highlight everything and execute. So we have email. We have email here. We have email down here. So the next thing, so any question before we proceed? So let's assume we want to move the email address to where we have the last name should be. After last name should be email address, because it can't be like this, not well arranged. So let's assume we want to move this email address. It should be after last name. So we're going to alter the database, our table again. We're going to use alter table employees. So we now say we want to modify the column. So you say modify column email. Email is the name of the column we want to modify, because we have so many columns here. So you must call out the name of the column that you want to modify. You say email. So what data type was that column? It was a varchar data type. It was 100. We now say, okay, after where do you want to modify it? It should be after what? So after last name, so we type after last name. So we end it with our semicolon. So let's quickly execute that. So executed successfully. So let's select that and see. So we have that there, email. So employee ID, first name, last name, email, department, and so on. So let's check our table of contents. So then the next thing you are going to do, you are going to rename that column. So let's assume we don't need this email. We want to rename it to something else. So let's quickly rename the column. So let's quickly rename that column. So we go again with the alter statement, alter table. What the name of our table? Now our table is employees. Employees. So what do you want to do? What do we want to do? You want to rename that column. So you say rename. Want to rename a column. Rename. What do you want to rename? You want to rename a column. So what column do you want to rename? Which of the columns? You want to rename the email column. So name the email column. Email. What do you want to rename it to? So you want to rename it to phone number. Phone number. So you can as well write phone, or you can put it like phone number. Phone number. So you end it with a semicolon. And let's quickly execute that.
Huh?
So you click on
No,
this.
mobile journey.
All right. So there is an error somewhere.
Continue. 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 Going back to my moment.
So our employee. So who is that should mute, please? Adebisi, can you please mute? So now we can see here that there was an error in our syntax because employee doesn't exist. You spelled employee wrongly. So let's quickly correct that. So let's execute that again. So we have that executed successfully. So let's use our select statement to call it out. So we have that there, phone number. So now if we refresh our schema, so you click on employees. So you can see that phone number is a virtual data type, is a text data type. So phone number is not supposed to be a text data type. It's supposed to be a numerical data type, an integer. So we are going to rename that again, and we are going to define that column again. We are going to redefine the column. So you say alter again, alter table, employees, modify. So we want to modify our column, modify column, phone number, so what data type are we going to give to phone number? Do anybody have an idea? Or the data type we are to give to phone number? Any idea? Hello? Okay. So we are going to give our phone number integer data type. So integer means numbers. It could be one, it could be two, it could be three, and so on. So we're going to end it with our semicolon. You highlight everything and execute. So we have that executed successfully. So the reason why it's not reflecting here on our table is because we have not refreshed our schema. So once we refresh our schema, it's going to reflect there. So let's quickly refresh our schema. So we have that phone number integer. So the next, we go to the last one, which is to drop that particular column. So let's assume the company no longer need a phone number column. So how are you going to drop it, right? We're going to stick with our alter table, employees. So now what are you going to do? So you want to drop a particular column. So you want to drop this column, the column phone number. You want to drop it. We don't need it. So let's call out the column we want to drop phone number. So we end our syntax with our semicolon. So let's highlight it, then execute. Okay, so I did that twice. So let's refresh our schema. So it's no more there. You can't find the phone number column. So let's go back to line 13 and select our table. So we have that there, employee ID, first name, last name, department, salary, resumption date. So we'll end there for today. Time few minutes for questions. So any questions so far? Chizoba, any question from you?
No, sir.
Okay, and if you have any question,
No, sir.
all right, Adebisi.
So I didn't get it from the beginning. So I don't know. I don't want to drag anybody down. So I guess I'm going to wait for the recording or something. I missed the beginning of creating the table and everything. I mean, I've installed the MySQL, but I don't know how to create anything.
Okay, so we are going to get the recording today. We'll get the recording today. I'll send it to the community manager. I'm going to get the recording today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So since there's no question for today's class,